Yeah, I guess before I start, there hasn't been an analysis in a really long time for a bunch of reasons. I didn't want to do an analysis on Cube's world record because calculators had like just been unbanned, and then there was a world record that used the calculator, and like without the calculator, it just would not have been world record. It wouldn't have even been close. So it was kind of a sad taste, and it was all drama at the time and everything. But I think like the main time save in that run was that a calculator was legalized. So the analysis wouldn't have been interesting at all. It would have just been, all right, the rules have changed. This is what runs look like now. Um, and therefore there's a new world record. Like that's kind of what happened. Like Cube is the best Minecraft speedrunner ever. Like that's my opinion is that he is the best Minecraft speedrunner ever. Um, but it really was like carried by calculator. But anyway, there's also been the recent world record of Sagi. That's just like a kind of normal run. A lot of RNG went correctly, and it was a really good seed, and it was world record. Like not a lot to like read into and everything. But Reignex's PB has a lot of like really interesting decisions, and it has like some unmapped theory. It's a 20 obsidian run, but it doesn't use 20 obsidian because reasons that we'll get into. Yeah, I don't have like a script prepared or anything. I'm just gonna play through it, and then it'll be like a classic analysis that I usually do, where I just pause the video and fucking start talking about shit. Whenever it happens. Have I muted I think I muted the tab. I always do that. Okay. Well, I think actually at the very start, jungle war motion. So jungles are like annoying. Trying to get like a lot of wood out of them is annoying. The leaves and vines block TNT, and also they're just slow to break, but that doesn't really matter so much. But you often like in a BT run like this, if you blow up the ground, you get less dirt, which sucks because of all the leaves, and you often get less wood, and it's just like bad. But also war motion. This isn't something that I've proven yet. I was meant to do it before I made the video, but for years we've had the belief that warm oceans have the shallowest oceans, and like colder oceans are deeper. The relevance of that is that any magma ravines that generate are more likely to be visible from the surface or have kelp if it's a like shallower ocean. So this is like a bad spawn. We still play them, but like this is like against the odds that this was a good run just off of the bat. Quick mapless, no TNT, just normal stuff. Gold axe run, so gonna have to craft an iron axe at some point. But a lot of food, like 4 salmon is crazy. The way food works in BT is that it generates fish twice, and it's 2 to 4 of each fish. So it can generate 2 cod twice, and you can get the worst possible like food out of a BT. You can get 4 cod. But then you could get the opposite, which is you could get 4 salmon twice. So you'd get 8 salmon, and that would heal you the most. Cod heals 2.5 hearts if you're patient, like letting it regen all the way when you go down to 8.5 haunches. And salmon heals 3.5. But because of some complicated mechanics with food, I'll put a link to Ninja Brain's food guide video in the description, I guess. Salmon actually ends up healing you slower. there's the rapid healing when you eat something. And when that rapid healing runs out, it takes longer until you're able to like eat again. And also like the slow healing period. The slow healing period takes longer with salmon. So basically it takes way longer to eat a lot of salmon than a lot of cod. So like the kind of rule of that, or like what to learn from that, is that like if you're pearling, it's better to use cod than salmon, because you want to get that rapid healing and also just eat the next food as fast as possible. But really in this situation, like you've got 3 cod, so you'll be able to rapid heal 3 times really well. And then 4 salmon, you're just going to be able to heal so much health. But yeah, doesn't really matter much for this run because you got, you know, really lucky food in general, but it's just things to think about. Shears. The meta at the moment is crafting shears as much as possible. The crafting meta's changed a lot over time. There was one point in time where we were like always making gold tools, or a lot of us were always making gold tools. And shears sometimes weren't even crafted. It was like not really a thought. But really the old meta was a lot of like going out to shipwrecks and stuff, like wood axe. Like we don't do wood axe runs anymore. They're just like too slow and unreliable. Being able to check if you have enough iron off the bat is like really good. And just shipwrecks in general aren't really meta because of food and that kind of thing. TNT is really good as well. Like the biggest thing in BT is, well, there's a lot of things. You get blocks from TNT a lot of the time. You're on the island, so if you get shears, you're actually able to use the shears. Where if you're like in a shipwreck in the middle of the ocean, you're not able to use shears if you're able to craft them. But also you get consistent food. Like I said, even if it's only 4 cod, that's better than like just the nothing that you can get out of shipwrecks sometimes. Or even just a half shipwreck will have no food. Yeah, shears is the meta at the moment. Just being able to have blocks on every nether means that any like gap, you don't have to use your wood, which means you don't have to get trees a second time. You're able to like use blocks for movement. If you ever have to like, yeah, just being able to use blocks for movement in just so many different ways saves a lot of time. So leaves and TNT are just crazy, which is why it's the meta. And now we have the second like look at the seed. Coral. Like warm oceans are just awful. Like you're basically never ever gonna get a magma vein in a coral ocean. So most runners have like thought about resetting. Like if they didn't have the BT already, if Rain had already looked at the ocean, he might have reset. But he just kind of like tunnel visioned the BT, and then, you know, he's got all his items now. There's no point in really resetting. But a lot of runners would have reset just looking at this ocean, because warm oceans are bad and coral bear means that it's not going to get any deeper. So you've got like in front of him, he's got this tiny area. You can see where the water gets a bit darker. That's like the only area where he's going to be able to find ravines or magma ravines. So super low chance that this run goes anywhere. But he's got kelp already. Kelp, of course, indicates magma veins. And then it's not a magma ravine, it's just a normal ravine. So the kelp was like pretty lucky. And then the fact that it's just a normal lava ravine instead of a magma ravine is crazy. And now we get into the like main fucked up part of the run. It's flint RNG. So we've already got 6 gravel, right? I think on average you're gonna get flint out of 10. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I'm not a fucking probability professor. But what does it take to fucking break a gravel? Let me check that actually. I'll get the cropped one up. See gravel. Cropped gravel. So including there's a 0.25 cooldown between blocks. He's using iron or diamond, I can't remember which one. But 0.5 or 0.4, isn't it? Yeah, it should take 4 seconds to get flint. If 10 is the average. I don't actually know if like that's the actual average. But I'm pretty sure it is. So it should take 4 seconds. Oh, this just isn't even cropped. Great. Thank you. But instead, it was like 1 in 40 or 1 in 50. Does anyone know the actual number? Just something, yeah, a lot of time lost just to gravel alone. It's 36. So 36 times 0.4. So 14 seconds. So like 10-second time loss just off the rip. Over average. Obviously, if you get like first try flint, then that's like, you could look at it as 13 seconds lost. It's 2 flint because you place one after you get your flint. Just because you hold down right click, it places automatically. Housing, mid down. Pauses. So housing has like 4 main routes, I guess. Could you think of it as 4? I think so. So there's top down and he could force top down right now, but it'd be kind of awkward. I think he has a little bit of gold still. He has like gold axe that he could use. You could force top down and you're gonna have better chance of getting 20 obsidian, which is also the meta at the moment. We had a long meta of just always going for blinds, but with calculators, 20 obsidian is like just, you're gonna be able to have really fast end games way more often with 20. Like there are really fast runs that just blind and it's like just as fast or slightly slower than 20 obsidian. But 20 obsidian is really the meta at the moment, and most runners are like forcing extra chests to get 20 on their way in or on their way out of the bastion. Brain prefers blinding. He's not big on calculators and not big on 20 obsidian. So he tries to blind more often. So, and also it's, it's kind of annoying going up to top of housing from the middle. So he doesn't go for it, but there's definitely some players who would try and force top down here. Not only would you get like better chances of 20, but you'd get more pigs. So your trades are going to happen faster, which kind of like balances out the time loss that it'd take to climb up. Because you'd be finished with trades earlier. And then Manhunt is the classic. So you'd boat down and then it's lava sea, so you'd have to build a bridge, but he's only got leaves and leaves catch fire really quickly. I could probably bring this up on the wiki as well. What's it called again? I have to do a bit of a wiki dive to find what this is called. I think it's encouragement. Let me see if it's encouragement. Spread, flammable blocks, maybe it's in here. No, what is this shit called? Flammable blocks. I swear it used to be called encouragement. They've just changed the name of it, I think. By the looks of things, they've just changed the name of it. Burn odds, ignite odds. It's kind of weird. But ignite odds is the thing here. So in Brentilda's world record, he got carpets. Because they have higher, apparently we're calling it ignite odds now, than planks. See, planks have ignite odds of 5. I don't know how this mechanic exactly works, but it's a lot more likely that carpets are going to catch fire. Where are leaves here? Leaves are really likely to catch fire. So you can kind of forget about building any bridge near lava. It's just going to catch and your pigs aren't going to walk on it. Or if they do walk on it, they're just going to die. And then there's mid down, which is kind of, it only started happening, like people either did manhunt or top down, but with Quee route, which is this kind of route where you get the extra gold block and you get some extra pigs, that are like stored at the back of the bastion. A lot of people do mid down, but it's kind of weird because it gets less pigs than manhunt or top down, and it doesn't have the chest benefit of manhunt or top down. But like in this situation, you can start the route like way faster. Not having to bridge here, not having to pillar up. Like mid down is like, you're able to start the route faster, just with less pigs and less chests. So it's like really hoping on good RNG. You need to be pretty lucky for it to work out well. Oh, and there was a fortress visible. I didn't mention it, but there was a fortress like visible behind the bastion that he noticed. Rain has a kind of distinctive housing style where he's one of the players. Crooks is another player who does this as well, where in the middle of trading, getting the gold blocks and trading with the pigs, he'll sort his inventory. I don't really agree with this kind of thing because, like, as you'll see, as soon as he starts to pick up piglin items as well, you're sorting your inventory there as well. Does it do it here? No, he does it afterwards, I guess. But you kind of have to have these like 2 inventory sorting splits. See there, he's throwing away some items. Like it doesn't matter that much, but having 2 different splits of the exact same thing when they could just be combined is just kind of disagreeable. It doesn't matter that much in this situation because he doesn't have many pigs. Doing mid-down housing, trades are taking a really long time. How much gold is still here? Yeah, 36 gold. He just had 9 though, so there's 27 gold left. This is taking like a really long time. But if the pigs were finished trading already, then it would have been obvious how well, the timeless would have presented itself by having 2 inventory sorting splits. But in the situation where pigs are being slow, it's kind of hard to notice. Well, it's not noticeable because there isn't actually time loss, since it's just being overlapped with piglin trading. Trades, I mean, I guess they're not finished yet. He could be hanging a pearl already, or at least mining the blocks at the back of the bastion. It's still a habit that a lot of people have. See, he's sorting his inventory again, like throwing out items and stuff. Like, it's kind of weird sorting your inventory early because you have to do it later anyway. If you're ever going to pick up more piglin trades, you're always going to have to throw away more of the shit that they give you. Yeah, mine's out the back of the bastion finally. I think he just got 20, maybe. He's thinking of hanging. Yeah. You just got 20, okay. 2 pearls to 4, not quite in the ring yet. Soul Skate, this is a legal exploit. If you place soul sand on the edge of a block and you've got soul speed, it keeps the soul speed for whatever reason. It's like partnered to the mechanic where if you're walking on the edge of soul sand, it doesn't slow you down. Somehow these two things are related. Really weird, but it's a legal exploit. So dynamic RD is a strat that's been adopted by a lot of runners recently. Years ago, we established the theory because T-Wag came up with 5RD or 6RD or 4RD. We weren't sure which one was the best at the time. Render distance is RD, by the way. He was playing 115 and drop render just to like unload a ghast or something. And then a bunch of fucking blazes spawned, like so many. I think the video is still up somewhere. Maybe I'll find it. And it was the craziest thing at the time. Like we just had no idea what happened. Like it you know, we understood pretty quickly, but it was a crazy thing at the time. And then we figured out, you know, it works best in soul sand and warped because there's less of other mobs spawning. So like fortresses will try and spawn as many mobs as they can rather than spawning mobs in different biomes and stuff. And then 5RD kind of became the meta. And some of us were doing things like I think FSG runs exist and stuff where we'd start at like 5 render and then go down to 2 at the spawner. But I think Pancake Spoon had a video showcasing it where you start at 6 and then go down to 5 when the mob cap is filled. And then when the mob cap is filled again, you go down to 4 and then 3. It would have worked here because the kind of idea of it is that it always works. It just spawns in a lot more mobs. You just get loads of strays. You just get loads of mobs in general. You kind of need to hope that they spawn in your fortress in cases like this where it's underground and wastes. Wastes have just normal spawning behavior compared to soul sand and warped. But he definitely could have got in like even just a couple blazes, and that kind of thing matters. Like on a spawner, like, you know, getting 2 blazes would be great, even though it's just a couple. But Rain, I don't think he actually knew dynamic RD at the time because he's only started practicing it recently. But it's hard to, you know, analyze that because you have no idea whether or not it would have spawned in any strays at all. Because the best odds are that it just spawns like a bunch of zombie piglins outside the fortress. But the benefit of not doing dynamic RD at all is that you have much higher visibility, like running around the forts trying to find spawners. Most runners consider spawners to be just slow nowadays because of, you know, Soul Sand Valley forts, such as in Brent's Run, or like Cubes, Lava Sea. I think it was Warped as well. It was Lava Sea and Warped. Those are like really fast fortresses because you just get loads of strays. And spawners are really slow compared to that. So the meta really isn't to go for spawners, but Rain was still going for spawners. Yeah, Sagi had Soul Sand Fort as well. Left on 6 strays, didn't see a spawner at all, just like Brent's Run. So it's, yeah, it is wastes though. Dynamic RD doesn't work as well in wastes, especially when they're underground like this, no lava sea to be seen. But it's, yeah, I think the meta is not to look for spawners at the moment, so it's a bit of an interesting play, but it works out. It's to block off wither skeletons. Pre-placing the crafting table was a little funny, but it doesn't really matter. If a blaze had spawned closer, then it could have mattered, but it doesn't really matter. Here's blazes, sees that this is a second spawner, and now we're playing a double spawner. If he opens his inventory, I need to pause on the inventory. So, what have we got? So that's 3 beds, 1 anchor. So you can't blaze bed here even if you wanted to. It's technically always correct to blaze bed, like even if you've got a double spawner, but no one really does it. But you can't really do it here. Blaze bed has its own theory where it's like 4 explosives is like the only time that you don't blaze bed. If you've got 3 explosives, you really want to get sheep or like a village, because 3 explosive one cycling is really difficult. Like, people can do it, but no one wants to do it. Like, it's just not really something that you can consistently do. It's crazy whenever someone pulls it off because it's super unlikely. It's not just skill involved on perfect timing, it's also on dragon height, because dragons have random height, and if the height is bad, then you're going to do less damage with the explosives, which means that you're not going to be able to pull off like a 3 explosive or something. And on 5 explosives, basically everyone blaze beds. Unless they're like forcing 0, because no one does 4 explosive 0. So on 3 explosives, on 4 explosives, like Rain is on, no one blaze beds really, because you can't really get away with it. So pre-places portal, and there are blazes upstairs. What is the time between spawns? I always forget this number. Let me look this up. Spawner. It's between something and something. Seconds, between 10 and 40 seconds, spawners. So those blazes spawned like 5 seconds ago or something. So in best case scenario, which is what you want, right? You want to have the best case scenario run. You want to have the best RNG. It's possible that if he gets up there and hasn't cleared the blazes, that he could waste some spawns. Blazes will fail to spawn if there's either a block or an entity in the place that they spawn. Like, spawners just choose 4 random areas in the like 9x9x5 or something of the spawner, or 9x5x9. They just choose 4 random spaces. It doesn't check for anything. It just chooses 4 random coordinates on X and Z. And then like 4 different Y levels or something, maybe 5. And just tries to spawn things there. If there's something in the way, it'll just cancel that spawn of that one blaze. So you really, that's the point of blaze bedding, is to get as many blocks out of the way so that every spawn can happen. And you want to clear not only yourself, because you count to like blocking spawns, but also other blazes and like skeletons and stuff. You want to clear them all out. Zombie piglins, everything. Because you could easily lose blazes. One entity can like potentially block multiple blazes as well. I don't know if they overlap also. I don't know if it can choose the same spot for 2 different blazes. I feel like it probably could, but it'd be like super unlikely. But so in best case scenario, and then unlucky like blaze placement, he could lose blazes on the next cycle, since he's choosing to build the portal first and also go through the portal first. So yeah, I think the best decision was to kill the blazers and then think about building this portal. So now what he's doing, he doesn't have that many rods. We're gonna find out. I think he's got 2 rods, right? Yeah, 2 rods. Obviously, he's not trying to get an 8-eye right now. This is just a strat that a lot of runners do when they have 20 obsidian. So the idea of it is that the 4 seconds that he's waiting in this portal animation is 4 seconds like less on the spawner times, because he's waiting for these spawners to spawn still, right? Still needs 3 to 4 more rods. So the idea is that you overlap the 4-second portal animation of the first portal, because he's intending on pearling somewhere and going to a second portal later. You overlap this first 4 seconds with the spawner. Because if you already have like 6 rods, the first 4 seconds could just, you know, be in isolation. Those 4 seconds could happen without being overlapped with anything. But the theory of it, whether or not it's correct to do, has always been kind of argued with. And has been controversial, especially after this run. Because what if he spawns in the stronghold? Or what if he spawns, you know, like 50 blocks, 100 blocks away from the stronghold? Where it'll be faster for him to just, like, well, a portal will snap, actually. But we'll get to that soon. But if you're trying to build a second portal too close to the first portal, when you go through the second portal to Nether, it'll just take you back to the first portal in the overworld. So in best case scenarios, where the stronghold is super close, or you literally spawn inside the stronghold, which is super unlikely, obviously, but still possible, this 4 seconds... Well, the 4 seconds on the overworld side just gets wasted. Of going from the overworld back to the Nether, because you have to return to the Nether at some point to get rods again. So you're kind of wasting an extra 4 seconds, which isn't a lot, but it is 4 seconds of like a raw time loss. Super unlikely again, but we are in, like, you know, runs are really fast nowadays. And that's the kind of RNG that we want to hit. So the other idea is that rather than trying to overlap those 4 seconds of the first portal on a low amount of rods, which is what Rain's doing right now, rather than doing this, you wait until you get 5 or 6 rods. Just because in the best case scenario, you're able to just not even think about going back to the Nether. You're able to just go. Go straight to the stronghold or whatever. Because 20 obsidian has a lot of RNG to it. Like, if the second portal is in a wall or something, or it's like, you know, in a lava lake and you don't have fire res, like, there's a bunch of cases where going to a second portal can be slower than just going to the stronghold. Because the terrain could just be terrible in the Nether. Like, there's just there's a whole lot of things to think about. Like, and really the safest and, yeah, the safest strat, but also the fastest strat is just waiting for 5 or 6 rods. But Rain opts for leaving on 2 rods, overlapping 4 seconds on both spawners, which is a lot of value. But ends up in this run, it punishes them. So can't measure that eye. I haven't had a calculator run analysis on the channel before, so how eye measurement works at the like super accurate level of calculators and stuff is you need to look at the exact pixel, which on 1080p is just lining up your crosshair on like GOI scale 3, I think, or maybe 4. You line up the right side of the middle of the crosshair with the left side of the middle of the eye, the iris, or whatever the fuck it's called. And that's the perfect eye measurement. And then on 1080p, there's like 3 pixel widths that the middle of the eye can be. It can either be the 3 middle pixels of the eye. So you have to look for like which of the 3 pixels are wide, and that'll tell you more information about the correct angle. Super complicated stuff, doesn't really matter. Basically, it needs to look at the perfect pixel of the eye, and then it'll give you the best odds of like the calculator knowing exactly where the stronghold is. Because it's not guaranteed when you throw 2 eyes that the calculator knows where it is. So you need to measure it properly. Which is why he couldn't look at that first eye, because it was obscured by the leaves. First eye thrown, second eye thrown. And it's not visible on screen, and he doesn't say it, I don't think. But the stronghold is like 200 blocks away. Oh, there we go. And that's the question, is can you build a second portal when the overworld second portal is going to be 200 blocks away? So obviously the way nether portals work is that 8 blocks in the overworld is 1 block in the nether, which is why it's so fast to do 20 obsidian runs. Because you're able to just travel super quickly. 8 times faster in some cases. And also like skip digging down and that kind of thing, because nether terrain often allows you to access low Y levels far easier than the overworld. So it's not been like published theory anywhere, at least like super publicly, of like how that mechanic works. Like when does a portal snap? Because if you build a portal just like 2 blocks away from the portal that he's standing in right now, when he goes through, it's not going to make a new portal in the overworld. It's just going to snap to the one that he just came out of. Or that he just created. So like, how far away do you have to go until the second portal is made? I was talking to Extra Solver, who answers a lot of my questions and has came up with a lot of, well, he just reads the code a lot. He's also done seed finding. He found the vine seed, I'm pretty sure, the set seed that got sub 150. So yeah, he's been in the community for like a year or something, I'd say, maybe longer than that. So the way that it works is that when you go through a portal in the nether, it converts its coordinates to overworld coordinates, right? And it checks the overworld, and it looks in the chunk. How do I explain this? So the coordinates will relate to a chunk, and it looks in a 19 by 19 chunk square for a portal in the overworld. So basically you need to travel, not including the chunk that you started at, but you need to travel 9 or 10 chunks. Really, what this means is that, well, something before we get into that, the important thing to think about there is that it's a square. It's not a radius, it's a square. Which means that the snapping range is like quote unquote further diagonally than it is straight. So if the stronghold is perfectly 90 degrees, then 160 blocks is like your safe bet. If it's 160 blocks away, and it's perfectly 90 degrees straight, then you should be safe to make a second portal. But yeah, you could risk, I think, 144. I'm not sure. Like, I think you need to be above 144 if it's perfectly 90. It's not really worth thinking about though. Like, really, 160 blocks is the absolute safest, because you can't really think about chunks and this kind of shit, like mid-run. And then diagonally, if it's perfectly 45 degrees, the stronghold, then it's 224 blocks is the safe distance. This is overworld coordinates, so 160 blocks away in the overworld stronghold at 90 degrees, and 224 blocks diagonally in the overworld. The calculator doesn't tell you distance in the nether, so it's not worth thinking about, but you can just divide those numbers by 8 if you really felt like it. And if it's, you know, 22.5 degrees or something in between, then you kind of need to do the mental math on whether or not it's going to snap. But yeah, 224 is the absolute safest. His stronghold was 200 blocks, right? And it was like not 45, not 90, but somewhere in between. So I'm not actually sure if it would have snapped or not. It would have been super close. That is if it is exactly 200 blocks. I guess we could check that actually. Where is this? Where is this? Well, portal breaking is really hard. Yeah. Housing, fortress, spawners, built in like here or something. This looks about the same. 211. Do I have the calculator open? I'll just let it do the math for me, because I'm a Minecraft speedrunner. 4-tick window? I'd be surprised if there was a 4-tick window. Whatever, man. I'm not sitting properly for this to fucking happen correctly. Need to line this up correct. It's correct, right? I don't know. We'll find out soon. Shut up. Yeah, like as you can already see, 177. Second portal is like in a wall right now. Looks like we can just go down the fortress, it won't be a big deal. It's at 114 on the Z, so we already know it's in the wall. And then minus 128. So it wouldn't have been so bad. 114, 128. But then he would have had to dig down here, would have had to pearl to land this, and then most runners would dig down even further to 40 and dig here, or build a portal here. And you'd have to carve it out. And this would take a pretty long time. So potentially it would have been slower to do second portal, because you'd have to run down here, dig through here, find the coordinate in here, and then dig all the way down here with a pearl clutch, which would have wasted food, although you did have to pearl in the overworld. We'll see if this would have hit. I'll just build an actual portal. No, it won't. I lied. Would this have not snapped and also at 51 would it have snapped to the stronghold or not? No. So he would have had to dig down anyway. I feel like I think most runners would dig down here and carve out this portal down at Y40. Y40 has the best odds for snapping inside the stronghold. But I think a lot of runners, especially Rain, who plays quite risky, would have built it here and would have had to dig down anyway. So, I'm not going to time it, but I feel like this would have been a lot slower to do the second portal. Yeah, so he knows that it's like a 4-second time loss there if he's not going to make a second portal. So the second portal wouldn't have snapped to the first one. It successfully created a second portal, but unless you dig the extra 11 blocks down and then the extra like, what is it, like 20 blocks or so in order to make room to build a portal down there, like that's a lot of time. Unless you did all of that, it wouldn't have like been a time save. Even then, I don't think it would have been a time save. Pretty bad rates. It is what it is. 6 rods. He's crafted 2 of the rods already. And now pearl travel. He's crafting between pearl throws, which is time loss that you, or time save, I mean, that you wouldn't have been afforded if you were doing nether second portal. Like he was able to craft the wool and whatever the fuck else he crafted, the powder, between pearls, but he couldn't have done that if he was going to second portal in the nether. So, and like we saw, he would have been digging down right now. Well, he would have been digging down if he built the portal at the surface of that nether under the fort. So yeah, I think it was time loss to leave on 2 rods, but it was time save. I'd say with some confidence that it was time save to just travel the overworld rather than the nether, all things considered. So strongholds, we haven't had a preemptive world record yet, but there's a stronghold strat called preemptive by Adlama. Adlama worked on the strat for like over a year, I think. He was always telling me in my chat about like his developments and stuff. He made a bunch of like unlisted videos and things. And eventually he got it working perfectly, and now basically everyone does it. And really, you just go down to 30 FOV. I mean, I think he does it, right? Yeah, he does do it. And it gives you a really good guess. Doesn't tell you guaranteed where it is, but it gives you a really good guess on where the portal room is. But sometimes, like in this situation, he talked about it when he was rewatching his run. You still just want to do traditional nav. Like sometimes you just see the portal room, right? Ocean exposed or something, you just see it. Or in this ravine here, you can just see it, potentially. But it ends up being time loss in this run because you can't just see it. It's only a time loss of like a few seconds or something. He's looking back and forth through this ravine. But now he starts looking for the portal room. Gets a spike over there. Still trying to see it just in the ravine. Like I think if this ravine wasn't here, he would have nabbed this like 5 seconds or more faster. Just because he wouldn't have had the temptation to like try and spot the portal room in the ravine. If he just saw the portal room, then it would have been faster, but in this case, preemptive ended up being time loss. Well, not time loss. Preemptive would have been time loss if it was visible. In this case, trying to high roll not needing preemptive was time loss. That's what I was trying to say. Found the portal room pretty quickly. I think without preemptive, you don't find this portal room. This stronghold is so ugly. Like, this is like, I feel like you'd never find this portal room without preemptive. This is not like following traditional nav laws at all. Super weird. So preemptive saved this run for sure, and it was really fast. Only has 4 explosives, so he can't go for 0, but I think he was just checking for it here. But yeah, he's got 9 wall and 4 glowstone. Something kind of funny is that he's 21 wood planks, and he's only going to use, what, 9 of them? So there's like a few logs there that he wouldn't have had to get. Not major time loss, but it's kind of funny to think about. And this cage spawn, technically he could have got out of this cage quicker with Pearl Tech, where you can clip through the top of the cage, but it doesn't really matter on perch runs. Because often you'll be able to get to the middle just in time for it to perch. Now, it also only matters on insta perches, which is what you want to get, obviously, but... Does he pre-place? No. He's still not pre-placing it, right? Yeah. So, it's the meta with anchors to pre-place it. Maybe he does it here. Does he do it as he pearls in? Let me just check that. He does place it, yeah. So, if he hadn't done that, then you often do a lot less damage with the anchor. The anchor doesn't get broken by the dragon, so you're able to do way more damage with it because you're able to get it like inside the head hitbox. Like the maximum damage you can do with an anchor versus a bed is like 4 or 5 more. Doesn't matter that much, but it can matter. But yeah, we've got a 3 bed, 1 anchor, 1 cycle. Does he actually have a sword? Or like, could he have crafted one? Yeah, he could have crafted a sword, but it's kind of tight. No, he could have crafted it when he was crafting the other beds and shit. Swords kill the dragon quickly, just because swords have higher DPS than axe. But it only saves like a second or something. I'm not sure how much it actually saves. On just killing the dragon with a sword. But in this one cycle, he ends up needing to melee the dragon. And a sword would have killed the dragon slightly faster. Good first bid, kind of. Can you really say this is a good first bid? It's like a 1/5 of its health or something. Dragon has 200 health. Most damage you can like kind of do with a bed is like 67. Often you'll hit like 59 or something. A really good one cycler like Rain is able to hit like 59s just really easily. But again, like I said earlier, dragon height is RNG. You're only able to do that kind of damage on good height. I don't use his FOV to 1 cycle, so I don't have the best idea on how high the dragon is, because it looks different depending on the FOV that you're using, obviously. But this height looks kind of good to me. Again, I'm using a different FOV. But this looks like pretty good height. Maybe it's a little low. Maybe that's the issue. But it's a little surprising that the bed only did a fifth of its health. Decently late. Okay, yeah. I don't use this FOV. Like, one cycling looks crazy on like 70 FOV. Quake Pro, it all looks like so much different. I've always used 100. And now, to me at least, it looks like this dragon's super low. Yeah, it's definitely super low dragon. When it's super low, sometimes the bed does less damage or it can even break. But that's got us a halfway. With 2 explosives left, I think, like, generally you want to be done with more than half of its health. Yeah, boy, I know. In order to, like, 4 explosive. Just because of the way, like, I think explosives do more damage on, like, if the dragon's head is on one side than the other. I think Silver, you might be able to confirm that. There's something at least to that effect. And at least when I one cycle in the practice map, I see that often it's like a higher damage and then a lower damage, higher damage, lower damage. And often you want to have like the first bed do like a lot of damage, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good already. But with the last explosive being an anchor, you could probably hope that the dragon would die because, like I said before, you're able to get the anchor inside the dragon hitbox and deal more damage. Then here's the tragedy. This is the second major time loss. Like, the 4 seconds of portal animation adds up to cost world record on its own. Gravel costing like minimum 10 seconds. Also cost world record, but this cost world record as well. So this should have been an explosive. Like, he should have right-clicked this. But you can see that he's looking at like the dragon hitbox. You can tell off of this. I could probably try and go crazy with this. Where he's looking, and if you look at the line of the hitbox here where it connects with the anchor, he's definitely looking at the dragon's hitbox. Not the anchor. So he wasn't able to explode it. He's definitely just looking at the hitbox. You can't like right click explosives through entities. You have to be looking at the block directly. And also like the block isn't outlined. That's the more obvious like more obvious sign. Oh, am I gonna do this? Yeah, a bed would have broken. Off of the first bed, like I said, it really looks like it's a low dragon. And then how low it is came up, well, how low it is became what, like, caused this tragedy. So, since it missed, in the moment, he was just like spam clicking it, trying to get the explosive off. And he was able to hit it, but now he has to melee it. And there's quite a lot of meleeing to be done. Let me see if we can find out. See sword, MC axe. What the difference would have been in dragon damage. Java edition. DPS. Here's an iron axe. An iron axe has 8.1 DPS. An iron sword has 9.6. It's definitely hard to say. But what would you like estimate this to be? I don't know, maybe that's like a tenth of its health or something. So it's got like 20 health. So you could kill it, and then you have to factor in the healing as well. It's kind of impossible to like think about how quickly you could have killed it with a sword versus an axe. But maybe you could have saved like a second or something. Or maybe just under a second with a sword. So it doesn't, I don't think it ends up mattering in this situation. It's only like a second maybe that a sword would have saved on the one cycle. If he had crafted one. This retime is incorrect. It was actually 8:39. The retime mod was like bugged. The world record's 8:36, you got an 8:39. So there's a lot of things that cost 4 seconds, right? Or even just 3 seconds. There's a lot of things throughout the run that cost that time. It started with, well, you could say that it started with the logs. It's kind of crazy to think that anyone would get less logs, though. It is really meta to get that amount of like logs that he got. So you can't really consider that to be what cost it. And even then, I think it would have only saved like a second or two because he had a gold axe if he got less logs. But then the main thing, right? He got 6 gravel off of the island. None of it dropped flint, obviously. And then he had to grind another 30 in the portal, which if he went 1 in 10, then the difference of going 1 in 10 and 1 in 36 is about 10 seconds. So he could have had an 8:29 just off of better flint rates. But then, yeah, there was the first portal. So he didn't end up using the second portal. So really all he did is he went to the overworld for a little bit to measure eyes and then had to go back to the portal. There is a flat 4 seconds of time loss of just the portal animation, but really if we think about it, if he had 6 rods already after throwing the second eye, and picking up this eye, if he already had 6 rods, he wouldn't be going back to this portal. He'd be throwing his first pearl to the stronghold if he had 6 rods right now. So we're at 5:33. So there's minimum 6 seconds of time loss. At the absolute minimum, there was 6 seconds of time loss. So that could have been 8:33 then at that point. And then of course the one cycle. So if the dragon was just slightly higher and he was able to get this explosive off, and it's a bit of a tall ask, the dragon has quite a lot of health. Definitely more than a quarter of its health here, but you can do like 71 damage with an anchor. And I think it would do 71 damage if it was just slightly higher. If he had killed it, it would have been 8:32. There's a 10-second death animation. But instead it was what is it? 8:39. So a bunch of I mean, gravel, that's uncontrollable. One cycle, the dragon height, and also maybe the lineup. You could probably argue that if you had the perfect aim, you could maybe... Am I going the right way? You could maybe look at this. Honestly, that kind of looks like you could look at that anchor. It looks like... I don't know. You see these lines? Like, is the dragon's hitbox completely overlapping the anchor? Is it absolutely 100% overlapping the anchor? If it is, then it was impossible to kill the dragon during this one cycle without meleeing. It kind of looks like it's completely overlapped. But if it was just pixels higher and his crosshair was pixels lower, then he could have killed it. Well, it looks like it's just impossible to even look at it. Pre-placing does more damage, which means that you're more likely to kill it during the one cycle. But yeah, like, he would have probably done more damage in this very, very specific case. He probably would have been able to do more damage. If it wasn't pre-placed. But this is a super specific situation. Like, this hasn't really happened before. At least it hasn't been observed in this, like, extreme detail. Yeah, like, the one unavoidable thing is the portal. But that's the big thing, and, like, one of the main reasons why I wanted to make this is because no one actually really knew, like, people knew, but not everyone knew what was the minimum distance to make a second portal, and is it even correct in the first place to do that kind of thing? To leave on 2 rods, or less than 5 rods to measure. Silver convinced me months ago, the whole thing of, in the best case scenario, you don't need a second portal. So I've always, well, I generally try and wait for 6 rods, unless I'm like super, you know, like if it's just spawned or something, like if there's nothing else to do, I'll measure, but it really seems like the correct theory is to just wait for 5 or 6 rods, just in case it's really close, because in this case it would have saved 6 seconds. And in his rewatch, he blamed me because I said, well, he was practicing one day. He was practicing in-game practice, and a stronghold was like, it was like 100 and something blocks away, and I was like, that is just gonna snap, because like a year ago or something, when we were doing Axis, not with the calculator, I had a portal snap. Like, I built a second portal and I got sent back to the first one. I just couldn't believe it. And then I did some like testing and found it was like just anything under 200 blocks was just unreliable for me. So that's what I told him. But yeah, 160 blocks straight, 224 blocks diagonal is the safest. And the essential mechanic is that it converts your portal coordinates, your nether portal coordinates in the nether, to overworld coordinates, relates that to a chunk in the overworld, and then checks a 19 by 19 square of chunks around those coordinates in the overworld, or that chunk coordinates in the overworld, for a portal. And if there's no portal in that 19 by 19, then it creates a new one. So that was the biggest unavoidable time loss. But yeah, all of the decisions nowadays, like, this is a rare case where there's a lot of decisions made in Iran or a lot of things happening in Iran. Like, runs nowadays are super cleaned out. And people don't like that. People are complaining at the moment about how runs nowadays are like bland, or like, you know, really samey and stuff. Because 2 years ago we were playing villages, we were literally mining iron in caves and entering at lava pools. We were playing outposts and stuff. Like, we were just playing everything back then. And we were playing loads of nethers, we were playing monuments all the time, and all of these things. But the route is like really well developed now. And we're approaching the kind of we're approaching Minecraft speedrunning becoming far more of a traditional speed game. We're still not at the place where micro time saves matter a lot. Like, if something saves 3 seconds, 5 seconds, most people don't really care. They're just going to do whatever they've always done, whatever's comfortable. A lot of people practice really fast portals and stuff, but a lot of micro time saves people just don't really care about because they just don't matter at the moment. It's far more important to get a seed that's just like 30 seconds faster than a different seed, just default. Far more important to roll something like that and get good blaze rates and that kind of thing, just stuff that you can't control. It's better to just reset and hope that you hit something like that. Micro time saves are just flashy, really, at the moment. But yeah, runs nowadays are super polished, so there's not a lot to talk about very often. Which I think is a good thing. I think it's a really cool thing that the game is like super polished and optimized now. But I'm biased because obviously I tried to work on it a lot in the early days, tried to find the best route. We finally got to that point. Yeah. Second sub 9 ever. There's like 17 sub 10s or some shit at the moment, not including double ups. Cube has 5 sub 10s, Crooks has 4. Not sure if anyone else has 2. People are pretty good at the game now. Things that people thought weren't possible are being proven possible. Time and time again. People get proven wrong. The number of people able to get a world record go up or down. It's mainly about discipline. Like, we used to think of like, oh, like who's a sub 10 player? Who can get a sub 10? And you'd list like a few people, but now it's like loads of people. And that's just because every time there's a faster run, there's a faster world record or whatever, or like a faster goal time, you just reset for stricter things. Like if there's going to be a sub 8, we'll just start resetting for sub 8 splits, and then people will get sub 8s. And it'll just keep going like that. That's just how every speed game works. It's like whenever there's a faster run, people just reset with more discipline. They play out less slow shit. Technically, we could reset for sub 7 right now, but we just don't need to at the moment because the world record's 8:30, 8:36. But if anything, there's like more talented players in the micro. In terms of micro, because you need like decent mechanics. You don't need god mechanics right now to get world record. You just need decent mechanics. And there's a lot of people with very decent mechanics right now. And I don't see those kind of mechanics going out of fashion. Like, it's really just better to get a faster seed. And it'll just always kind of be like that. And if you can't get a faster seed anymore, then just get faster in-seed rates or looting, this kind of shit. And eventually we could get to the point where you have to play monuments, because monuments, I believe, are theoretically faster. or like classic ruined portal kind of nonsense. Demo runs. Yeah, I don't see any like time killing the category. I don't think that's like really a thing. People could give up, but there was never going to be an unbeatable time in Minecraft speedrunning. Just like every game. That was the first analysis in like over a year or some shit. I think I was gonna put some kind of fucking links in the description. Yeah.